Our tale begins in the lost shire of Nagrand, where a small community lived and worked for the squire of Orgrimmar. In this small community was a woodland known as Darkmoon Woods, and here lived a goblin hidden away in the depths of the darkness. And yet none of the villagers knew of this goblin, as the path to his secret cave was hidden in mystery and enchantment. But for one young girl, this was a forlorn path across the forest, as she had no choice but to pass through the forest to see her nana to gather pots of honey every day. Very strange path this, wasn't it, eh?
Don't be afraid.
Oh, well, we've got to be afraid. It was a very dangerous path, it was. Well, little did Esmeralda know that her path was being watched, and that the strange, eerie and evil goblin was always ready to pounce. The evil goblin was always waiting for the right moment to strike her down and cook her for supper. Until then, suddenly, the goblin attacked. Well, that was a vicious attack. What do you say?
Looking for Anna?
Well, I was actually, but never mind. Anyway, when Esmeralda got back to the town, she dialed 999 immediately and called the UCET Emergency Critters Extermination Team. And so it came to pass that UCET, our intrepid heroes, set out in search of the goblin. The goblin would come out of his cave every morning and take a look through the dank and dark misty depths of the rays of sunshine that permeated through the forest trees in exactly the same way that bricks don't. This part of the forest was well off the beaten track, so the goblin very rarely saw anyone indeed. In fact, he was so rare that he saw no one. Isn't that right, eh?
Don't be afraid.
Ooh, okay then. Anyway, the goblin would usually go to the stream and fish, because fishing was the only means for the goblin to have supper. In fact, it was only recently, when Esmeralda had found a shorter route through to Anana's for the pot of honey, that the goblin had become aware that manfolk even existed. And now it was time for the UCET cavers to bravely set off in their intrepid search for the goblin. They prepared themselves, kitted themselves out with equipment and extermination tools, and off they went, brave and fearless, into the deep dark forests of Darkmoon. The team passed through tree and twig and passed through the shadowy lands of the forest until at last a cave entrance was found. Could this be the one? One by one the cave members entered the cave, where they found a gooey brown mucus, horrible kind of stuff all over the place. This surely must be the goblin's lair. They filed in, brave and fearless, intrepid and bold, wandering through the passages one by one into the darkness and gloom. The team went deeper and deeper until Hugh, the leader of the team, called a meeting. It was time to sit down and discuss the tactics. How were the team going to flush this goblin out? Well, that was a strange meeting, wasn't it, eh? Well, I'm not going to look at you again, that's for sure. The team travelled onwards, and as they went down the dark passages, they came across a ghostly apparition of a goblin totem. This kind of goblin magic was no match for our team leaders Hugh and Pew, who bravely set off to go and destroy it with easy menace. They found a new passageway, and wandering along they led the team onwards, until at last we found the Bridge of Death. No living man had ever passed the Bridge of Death, and it was decided that the women should go first. Bravely the women set off across the bridge, one by one filing across, and having made it safely to the other side, the men followed too. That was a good idea, wasn't it, eh? Oh yes, I thought so too, very much. Thank you, Centurion. On the other side of the bridge, the team regrouped for another meeting to discuss tactics, and discussing these tactics led to further discussions. Well, it would, wouldn't it? Just then, the Goblin was spotted atop a mound, looking down upon the party of intrepid heroes. What should be done? The team jumped to attention and immediately gave chase, running after the Goblin down the passages. With undergrit foot and horrible slime oozing out of the walls, the team chased the Goblin all the way out of the cave, out of the passages, and back into the forest. The Goblin ran through the forest, running away from the UCET cavers, who gave chase, whilst Grub was stalking... Oh yes, good evening to you too. Fine for waking up now, thank you very much. Grub was chasing him along the forest and stalked him with an oozy 9mm machine gun. The Goblin was going to be dead meat. The Goblin tried to flee, but then suddenly... The Goblin was dead. The threat and menace of Darkmoon Forest was over. The UCET cavers had triumphed once again, and the critter had been exterminated. And Esmeralda was able to walk safely through the forest once again to visit her nanas for another pot of fresh honey. The end. Well, how about it then? What a very good idea.